Okay, guys, today is Tuesday, March 22nd. For our warm up today, we're going to do Tell a Story Tuesday. So, for the first 10 minutes of class, you are going to free write in your binder or on your iPad. When the 10 minutes is up, please go into Schoology to make sure you're watching this video that goes over the instructions for today. So, hopefully you're already doing that if you're watching this video. We're going to be reading the crossover today. So we're starting the book. You should have a copy of the book on your desk. Please do not write or damage these books. Keep them on your desk when you leave for today. Do not take them with you, okay? Each book is assigned to that certain desk. So if you're seat 25, that book should say 25, and it should be there tomorrow when I come in as well. You should have received a crossover packet yesterday from me. I went over the packet yesterday as well. If you need a copy of the packet, then the sub has some on their desk. So if you do need a copy and you're absent yesterday, there are some on the desk. So let's go into reading the crossover together. I will read and annotate it with you. All of our annotations will be made in our crossover packet. This packet you'll keep in the Create section of your binder. Right at the top. Make sure you write your name at the bottom here. We'll be writing in this section, the warm-up first quarter. You'll see that the basketball notes are separated into 4 quarters, just like how there are 4 quarters in a basketball game. We will be annotating a lot today in this box, so make sure you space out your notes so there's enough room. Don't write too large. Please make sure you're bringing your own pen and pencils to class. I'll start distributing consequence cards for kids that are not prepared for class, that they don't have writing utensils. You are responsible for bringing a pen and pencil to class. Do not write in your packet in marker or crayon, okay? You'll be turning this in for 2 grades, and I cannot read what you write when you write in marker or crayon. Okay, so we are going to start reading in your book. So in your book in your desk, turn to page 3, and we'll be in this poem, Dribbling. Since this is a novel, we still are going to have a story and a plot, even though it takes place in poems. So we still have an exposition. So you're going to write this down on your own packet. 1 second. Okay. So you're going to write down exposition. And in our exposition, we have our going to do bullet points. We have our setting, characters, and point of view. Please leave a space for characters because you're going to be adding to that character list. So leave enough room where you can add like 5 or 6 characters to that in this space, okay? That's why I'm telling you to write a little bit smaller so you have enough room. And let's start listening to the audiobook.
Recorded Books and One Click Digital present The Crossover by Kwame Alexander, narrated by Corey Allen and directed by Rachel Pick.
Warm up. Dribbling. At the top of the key, I'm moving and grooving, popping and rocking, while you bumping, while you locking. Man, take this thumping. Be careful though. 'Cause now I'm crunking, crisscrossing, flossing, flipping, and my dipping will leave you slipping on the floor while I swoop in to the finish with a fierce finger roll, straight in the hole. Swoosh.
Okay, we're going to pause there. Remember, we are going to be making notes. We're not going to annotate directly onto the poem, even though that's what I'm doing on my screen. So first thing we notice, we don't have the setting yet because setting is when and where it takes place. We don't have the characters, but we do see what the point of view is because we see I, and my. And that tells us that the point of view is first person. So make sure you write that in your notes. It's first person point of view. In this poem, it's called Dribbling. So I'm going to write down the title of the poem. The type of poem this is concrete poem. Remember, we talked about concrete poems in our poetry notes from yesterday, but it's when the poem takes the shape of what the poem is talking about. Now, the difference here is that there's not really a shape exactly to it, the way that the clock poem we saw in the example from our notes yesterday looked like. Instead, it's showing us what dribbling looks like. So it starts here and it zigzags and goes back and back and back and crisscrossing, and it goes down the core, swoop and swoosh. So like just following the lines of the poem, it creates that shape and movement of dribbling the ball on a basketball court. So that's why it is a concrete poem. So go ahead and write that in your notes as well. And we are going to keep listening.
Josh Bell is my name, but Filthy McNasty is my claim to fame. Folks call me that 'cause my game's acclaimed. So downright dirty, it'll put you to shame. My hair is long, my height's tall. See, I'm the next Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Chris Paul. Remember the greats? My dad likes to gloat. I balled with Magic and the GOAT. But tricks are for kids, I reply. Don't need your pets. My game's so fly. Mom says, your dad's old school, like an old Chevette. You're fresh and new like a red Corvette. Your game's so sweet, it's a crepe Suzette. Each time you play, it's all net. If anyone else called me fresh and sweet, I'd burn mad as a flame. But I know she's only talking about my game. See, when I play ball, I'm on fire. When I shoot, I inspire. The hoop's for sale, and I'm the buyer.
All right, let's pause there. So we have our main character's name. We're going to add him to our character list in our notes. His name is Josh, but he goes by Filthy McNasty. Yes, I know, interesting name. And I'm going to put that in my character list, Josh Filthy McNasty. Now, when we're reading these poems, you're going to see a lot of examples of different types of similes, metaphors, onomatopoeia, personification. But we do not have enough room in our notes to make note and annotate every single example. So I will let you know when to stop and identify an example of our poetry terms. In this poem, we're going to find one example of simile. There are several different examples that you can see in this poem. Remember, simile uses like or as to compare two things. So you can see where the mom says, your dad's old school, like an old Chevette, which is an old car. That is a simile. But then she says, you're fresh and new, like a red Corvette. That's another simile. I'd burn mad as a flame. It uses as to compare him to a flame. So that is a simile as well. I'm just going to choose one example to write down in my notes. And I'm going to choose, you're fresh and new like a red Corvette, as my simile example for this poem. So like I said, we're not going to write every single example. We'll only stop and write an example of a couple as we read along.
How I got my nickname. I'm not that big on jazz music, but Dad is. One day we were listening to a CD of a musician named Horace Silver, and Dad says, Josh, this cat is the real deal. Listen to that piano, fast and free, just like you and JB on the court. It's okay, I guess, Dad. Okay? Did you say okay? Boy, you better recognize greatness when you hear it. Horace Silver is one of the hippest. If you shoot half as good as he jams. Dad, no one says hippest anymore. Well, they ought to, 'cause this cat is so hip, when he sits down, he's still standing, he says. Real funny, Dad. You know what, Josh? What, Dad? I'm dedicating this next song to you. What's the next song? Only the best song. The funkiest song on Silver's Paris Blues album. Filthy McNasty.
And if you recognize this poem, we read it yesterday and annotated it yesterday already, so we are going to keep listening.
At first, I didn't like the name because so many kids made fun of me on the school bus, at lunch, in the bathroom. Even Mom had jokes. It fits you perfectly, Josh, she said. You never clean your closet, and that bed of yours is always filled with cookie crumbs and candy wrappers. It's just plain nasty, son. But as I got older and started getting game, the name took on a new meaning. And even though I wasn't into all that jazz, every time I'd score, rebound, or steal a ball, Dad would jump up smiling and screaming, "That's my boy out there. Keep it funky, Filthy." And that made me feel real good about my nickname.
So in the previous poem, we hear about how Josh gets his nickname, and then this poem talks about how at first he didn't like it, but then he starts to grow into this character of Filthy McNasty.
Filthy McNasty is a mythical man-child of rather dubious distinction, always agitating, combinating, and elevating his game. He dribbles, fakes, then takes the rock to the glass fast and on blast. But watch out when he shoots, or you'll get schooled, fooled, uncooled, 'cause when Filthy gets hot, he has a slammerific shot. It's dunkalicious, classy, supersonic, sassy, and downright in-your-face McNasty.
And now we're starting to see him really own this nickname and kind of develop like an ego towards it. In our notes, because this poem has so many examples of figurative language, we are going to find an example of just alliteration because there are several. Remember, alliteration is when the first sounds of the word are repeated. So, for example, when it says mythical man-child, the M is repeated. Dubious distinction, always agitating. Slammerific shot, supersonic sassy. Those are all examples of the repetitive sound in that first few words. Those are alliteration. So just choose one of those examples to write down in your notes. I'm going to choose supersonic sassy because that repeating S sound. Just choose one of them to write down in your notes.
Jordan Bell. My twin brother is a baller. The only thing he loves more than basketball is betting. If it's 90 degrees outside and the sky is cloudless, he will bet you that it's going to rain. It's annoying and sometimes funny. Jordan insists that everyone call him JB. His favorite player is Michael Jordan, but he doesn't want people to think he's sweating him, even though he is. Evidence? He has one pair of Air Jordan sneakers for every month of the year, including Air Jordan 1 Low, Barack Obama limited editions, which he never wears. Plus he has MJ sheets, pillowcases, slippers, socks, underwear, notebooks, pencils, cups, hats, wristbands, and sunglasses. With the $50 he won from a bet he and Dad made over whether the Krispy Kreme hot sign was on, it wasn't. He purchased a Michael Jordan toothbrush, only used once, on eBay. He's right. He's not sweating him. He's stalking him.
So in the context of this poem, we keep hearing the word sweating, and this is not the same way we think of sweating like when you're like tired or hot and you sweat. In this context, we can see that sweating means that he's like fanboying or obsessed with Michael Jordan, okay? So it has a different meaning there. We're going to add Jordan to our character list in our notes. So Jordan, he goes by JB. And this is Josh's twin brother. So I do want to make sure I understand that this is his twin because that's a huge part of the story.
On the way to the game, I'm banished to the back seat with JB, who only stops playing with my locks when I slap him across his bald head with my jockstrap.
Okay, so Josh has locks of hair and JB has a bald head. So keep that in mind as we get to the next poem.
5 reasons I have locks. 5, some of my favorite rappers have them. Lil Wayne, 2 Chainz, and Wale. 4, they make me feel like a king. 3, no one else on the team has them. And 2, it helps people know that I am me and not JB. But mostly because, 1, ever since I watched the clip of Dad posterizing that 7-foot Croatian center on ESPN's Best Dunks Ever, soaring through the air, his long twisted hair like wings carrying him high above the rim, I knew one day I'd need my own wings to fly.
Okay, so in the previous poem we saw how JB is bald and Josh has locks. So in this next poem, he tells you what locks look like and why he has locks. His favorite rappers have them. They make him look like a king. And it helps people to know the twins apart because JB is bald and Josh has this longer hair, which he calls locks. And locks basically just look like long twisted hair. If you look up a picture of Lil Wayne, you can kind of see what the hair looks like. What's also important is his number one reason that he has locks is that his dad had them as well. And we find out something really important about his dad. He was on ESPN's Best Dunks Ever. So we can make the assumption that the dad was a famous basketball player, which we're going to add to the character list. So we're adding dad to the character list. And I'm going to put that he was a famous basketball player. Okay. That's one of his inspirations of why he wanted locks as well.
Mom tells Dad that he has to sit in the top row of the bleachers during the game. You're too confrontational, she says. Filthy. Don't forget to follow through on your jump shot, Dad tells me. JB tells Mom, we're almost in high school, so no hugs before the game, please. Dad says, you boys ought to treasure your mother's love. My mom was like gold to me. Yeah, but your mom didn't come to all of your games, JB says. And she wasn't the assistant school principal either, I add.
Okay, so now we're getting information about the mom, who we're also adding to our character list. So mom is the assistant school principal. I'm going to put AP for short for assistant principal. And that's important to the story as well. So add mom to the character list. The mom tells the dad that he's too confrontational, which means he's really aggressive. She tells him he has to sit in the back of the bleachers during games because he's too confrontational. He's too aggressive. So if you've ever been to like a school basketball game or football game, think of those like parents that are like coaching their kids from the sidelines and being like a little too loud. That's kind of what the dad is like, which makes sense because he used to be a famous basketball player. So he's very opinionated with how his boys play basketball as well. Right.
Conversation. Dad, do you miss playing basketball? I ask. Like Jazz misses Dizzy, he says. Huh? Like hip-hop misses Tupac, Filthy, he says. Oh, but you're still young, You could probably still play, right? My playing days are over, son. My job now is to take care of this family. Don't you get bored sitting around the house all day? You could get a job or something. Filthy, what's all this talk about a job? You don't think your old man knows how to handle his business? Boy, I saved my basketball money. This family is fine. Yeah, I miss basketball a lot. And I do have some feelers out there about coaching. But honestly, right now I'm fine coaching this house and keeping up with you and your brother. Now go get JB so we won't be late to the game and Coach benches you. Why don't you ever wear your championship ring? Is this Jeopardy or something? What's with the questions? Yeah, I wear it when I want to floss. Dad smiles. Can I wear it to school once? Can you bounce a ball on the roof off a tree in the hoop? No? Then I guess you're not the man. Only the man wears the ring. Oh, come on, Dad. Tell you what, you bring home the trophy this year, and we'll see. Thanks, Dad. You know, if you get bored, you could always write a book, like Vondi's mom did. She wrote one about spaceships. A book? What would you have me write about? Maybe a book of those rules you give me and JB before each of our games. I'm the Man by Chuck Bell. Dad laughs. That's lame, Dad, I say. Who you calling lame? Dad says, headlocking me. Dad, tell me again why they call you the Man. Filthy, back in the day, I was the boss. Never lost. I had the sickest double cross and I kissed so many pretty ladies, they called me lip gloss. Oh, really? Mom says, sneaking up on us like she always seems to do. Yeah, you the man, Dad. I laugh and throw my gym bag in the trunk.
Okay, so we get this conversation between Josh and his dad, and what's cool is even though it's in the form of a poem, we still see that it's a conversation based off of how the font looks like. So anytime the font is normal, that's Josh speaking. And anytime it's italicized, so the font looks slanted, that's the dad responding. And we have the entire poem switch between regular font and italicized font to show who's talking in that conversation. And you'll see this in more poems in the book when they're having like dialogue and conversation. It'll have italicized words to show that another character is talking as well. Also, when the dad says, like, I only wear my championship ring when I want to floss, that basically means when he wants to show off. And it's clear that even though the dad was a famous basketball player, he's retired. He's no longer playing in the NBA anymore.
Basketball rule number 1. In this game of life, your family is the court, and the ball is your heart. No matter how good you are, no matter how down you get, always leave your heart on the court.
Okay, this is where we're going to stop for today, but we are going to break down this first basketball rule. First off, in our notes, we're going to talk about this metaphor that I just highlighted. A metaphor is comparing two things without using like or as. So the author is comparing the family to the court, and the ball is your heart. Now, what does that mean? In this game of life, your family is the court and the ball is your heart. No matter how good you are, no matter how down you get, always leave your heart on the court. So it's basically saying the importance of family. The basketball court is where you're playing the game, and so your family is the court. The ball is what you need to actually play the game, and the ball is your heart. Always leave your heart on the court. So always leave your heart with your family is basically what that basketball rule number 1 is saying. And we're going to take what we learned from that and skip the vocabulary pages and go to basketball rule number 1. You are going to write down what basketball rule number 1 is. Tell me, how does this rule relate to Josh's life outside of basketball? So think about basketball rule 1 is saying that family is important. Always put family first. That leave your heart with your family. That's what the rule is saying. So how does that relate to Josh's life outside of basketball? And how could it relate to your own life? Once you've answered these questions, I'm just looking for 1 to 2 sentences for each one. You're going to put this packet back in the Create section of your binder. Make sure you answered these 3. And that's all for today. So put the packet in your binder and then leave your books on your desk. Do not take your books home with you, okay? Leave the books on the desk and have a great day. Thank you.